What's going on, beautiful people? It's your man Louie T. Kids trying to get me a cold, man. You know how it go, man. Trying to get the kid. I'm over here fighting a good fight. This free agency period has started off with a bang. It is the tampering period, but it's going bananas, as I expected, as you expected, as we expected. This is not a surprise. And we're going to talk about all the moves that have been made. There are moves being made as we speak. The Giants just signed running back Motor Singletary. So they get a replacement for Saquon in New York. So we're seeing the dominoes fall, right? It happened very rapidly at the running back position. I guess the only thing we're really waiting on now is for Derrick Henry to decide between the Cowboys and the Ravens, is my guess, at the running back position. Aaron Jones did get released, so I feel like whoever doesn't get him will probably pivot and go to Aaron Jones. It makes a ton of sense. I don't know if I don't go after Aaron Jones first, to be honest with you, if I'm those two teams. But if you're the Ravens, you need somebody that's physical, because I don't know what's going to happen with Keaton Mitchell, but you've got speed with Keaton Mitchell being on the roster. So you just don't know how he's going to heal and how explosive he'll be when he comes back. But Derrick Henry seems like a great fit, especially with Gus Edwards being a free agent in Baltimore. But so much to get to. I haven't even gotten into the show yet, and we're just jumping into this thing. You know what it is. You're locked into the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Louie T Network podcast, episode 403. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Couple of items before we get to the meat and potatoes of why we're here. And we're literally going to just talk free agency and the tampering period and all that has transpired and all of the moves that have been made and the ramifications of those moves today. That's it. We're just going to talk free agency. It's going to be like this probably the next few days because it's going to be crazy. We always know the first day out of the box is going to be insane. But this year is a little bit different. You got a big name quarterback switching teams. You got running backs galore. Moving the dominoes and reshuffling the deck there. You got a defensive tackle getting massive money. Xavier McKinney just goes to the Green Bay Packers, so the Packers get into the fray. And, you know, this is odd. If you're a Packers fan, this has got to be like the biggest surprise ever because the Packers generally don't spend a ton of money in free agency, but we've already seen them go out and get Josh Jacobs and now Xavier McKinney. So the Packers are spending money. But, you know, the NFL is printing money right now. They're printing money with the way that these TV deals have gone and all of the different monies that they've seen come into the league. And so that's why the increase in the cap was so significant. And so teams have money and they're not afraid to spend it. So I'm going to see what else transpires, but we'll get into the meat and potatoes of that. But before we do, shout out to my guy, Frank McLaughlin. Frankie, baby, what's up? I wanted to give you a big shout out because you gave me the recommendation of the terminal list. Oh my God, it's so good. And me and my wife, I think we're on episode 6, and I think there's 8 of them. So we only have, I think, 3 left. We could have finished it yesterday, but we didn't want to set ourselves up because what you didn't tell me was each episode was like a mini movie. So each episode is roughly an hour and some change sometimes. And, you know, when you get used to those 45-minute to 35-minute episodes, you can run through those quickly. Not so much with the buck and some change episodes. So didn't want to start because then we wouldn't want to stop. And then next thing you know, it's 1 o'clock in the morning and, you know, people got shit to do in the morning. So we didn't finish yet, but we will here shortly. And it's been fantastic to start. Meanwhile, we finished Jack Reacher season 2. It was excellent. Everything that I thought it would be. And now we sit and we wait to see if there'll be a season 3 for Jack Reacher. And if there is, I wonder what angle they would try to go with. They've exhausted 2 pretty big angles. But I like how they tied everything in together. It was well done, and I enjoyed that thoroughly. So thank you guys for the suggestions. You suggested Jack Reacher. You suggested the Terminal List, and those were home runs. So really, truly do appreciate you guys. That said, let's get into the proceedings this evening. Why you guys showed up here today, which is the gym dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So, of course, we're here talking about free agency. And I'm on the struggle bus, so y'all got to bear with me today. So I'm going to go through the list of moves that have been made already. There were some moves made over the weekend. Jerry Jeudy, who seems like he's been on the trading block for like 4 years, finally gets dealt. Mac Jones gets dealt. Baker Mayfield reaches a new deal. So we got some quarterback news over the weekend. We saw some movement. We saw some guys get released over the weekend. Eric Armstead got released. We saw David Bakhtiari get released from the Green Bay Packers. So it's moving. The needle is moving. Let's get into so Gus Edwards is heading to the Los Angeles Chargers. So from one Harbaugh to the next. So let's go through all of the quarterback signings. We'll go in order of position and knock these out. So we'll start with Kirk Cousins signing a new 4-year, $180 million deal to become a member of the Atlanta Falcons. Nobody does it quite like Kirk. I've admired Kirk from close up, from afar, and what he's been able to do to manipulate the system. And really, we started that. The Commanders, then Redskins, started that. Had they just given him the deal he wanted after the 15th season, none of this would have come about. It's really been a blessing in disguise that Washington lowballed him with Bruce Allen and company, which forced him to take that first franchise tag. And then it's been Kirk Cousins finessing the system every contract since. And I love what he's doing. And I actually think he makes the Falcons a contender. That's a weak division in a conference that's not that great, doesn't have tons of great quarterback play. Look, he was in this conference last year, like he's coming over from the rough and rugged AFC. But he's going from a much more competitive division to a much less competitive division. And the Bears are getting their shit together. The Lions have emerged as one of the best teams in the conference. And the Packers showed that they can be one of the best teams in the conference again with Jordan Love. So that's a tough division. You go from that nightmare of a division to the cupcake NFC South, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the division last year, damn near with a losing record. So this is a big move for Kirk, and I think he's going to dominate. And there's talent already, and I've talked about this. There's talent in Atlanta. They're ready to win. This is kind of feeling like the Detroit Lions model, so to speak, where they go get the veteran and they now try to go win. Remember, the Lions had a top, draft pick, and they could have selected a quarterback, but instead they went out and got Jared Goff and gave away a first-round pick to do so. The Falcons could have spent their first-round pick on a quarterback. Instead, they're going to go the free agent route, and they're going to try to win now, and they've got the pieces to do so. Let's see what happens. Baker Mayfield re-signs to stay with the Bucs on a 3-year, $100 million deal. Good deal for both parties involved. The Bucs can get out after, I believe, the first or second year. It's one of the two. If I think they can get out after year 2. So puts them in a position where if Baker doesn't play well, they don't get stuck with a contract. Meanwhile, for Baker, if he does play well, puts him in a position to come back and take another bite out of the apple very, very quickly. So good deal for both parties on each side. Russell Wilson, late last night, agreed to a 1-year, $1.2 million deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's a great fit. I thought that's where he would end up all along. It was kind of jarring, but I told you it's Lions season, so you got to believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. We had seen the article, or I had talked about at least seeing an article that referenced the Steelers as being out on all of the free agent quarterbacks. That included Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was a little baffled by that because I'm like, Russell Wilson is a great fit, and you don't have to pay any money to sign him. It just makes too much sense for the Steelers. Then they're a veteran team. They're ready to win now. It just made too much sense. And he's going to go in, obviously compete with Kenny Pickett, but we all know that that's Russell Wilson's job to lose. If he goes in there and does the things that we know he's capable of doing, he will end up being the starter there in Pittsburgh. So we'll see how that goes. Mitchell Trubisky goes back to Buffalo, signs a 2-year, $5.2 million deal. He was once the backup for Josh Allen just a couple of years ago. Now he goes back to Buffalo. So that's all the quarterback news for now. You head to the running backs. Saquon Barkley signs a 3-year, $37.75 million deal with the Eagles. There was a lot of talk about him sticking around in the division, whether it was Dallas or Philadelphia, but they were both interested in Saquon Barkley, and obviously that's exactly what he ultimately does. Stays in the division, goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles lose DeAndre Swift, pick up Saquon Barkley. I think that's a win for the Eagles when it's all said and done. I think that's a net positive, upgrading that position at running back. Now the question is, will they use him adequately? They failed to use DeAndre Swift. Saquon's a different animal. If he's healthy, we'll see if they stick to the script and give him the football. But Josh Jacobs signs with the Packers after we got the news of Aaron Jones being released, after they could not come to an agreement on a restructured deal. And so now Aaron Jones hits the market. I assume he'll end up in Dallas. He's a Texas kid. That's my guess, being that the Texans didn't get anything done with any of these big name backs. Look out for the Texans because they were rumored to be interested in Saquon Barkley. So Aaron Jones makes a ton of sense for either the Dallas Cowboys or the Houston Texans. So look out for that. Meanwhile, DeAndre Swift was one of the first guys to sign. As soon as the tampering period began at noon, DeAndre Swift to the Bears came out immediately, 3 years, $24 million. So he kind of was the first domino set in motion to then kick off the chain of events that we've seen take place with the running back position. Tony Pollard followed there very shortly after, signing a 3-year, $24 million deal with the Titans. So $8 million per for some of the better backs on the market. That's the going rate. Again, the running back position is not one where you have to overspend. So we knew that this was going to be sort of what these guys would be looking at. And Barkley's going to set the market, right? He's going to be the highest paid running back of this group. So seeing that he gets a deal for just a shade over $12 million, which is more than the franchise tag, pretty much sets the table for what Josh Jacobs' deal is probably going to look like, Derrick Henry, and what he'll look like. He'll probably be more in that $8 million range wherever he signs. Aaron Jones will be interesting. He might be closer to the deal that Saquon got and that Josh Jacobs will probably get. Jacobs, if I'm guessing, will probably sign a 3-year, $36 million. It'll be more than the franchise tag. So I'm assuming it'll be 3 years, $37 million, 3 years, 36 and a half, something to that effect. And I think Aaron Jones will probably fall somewhere in that 3 years, $33 million range. So we see what is going on here, and we see the writing on the wall. Lots. Speaking of running backs, Antonio Gibson, the former Commander, signs a 3-year, $11.25 million deal. So just a shade over $3 million, roughly $3.5 million per year for Antonio Gibson. A good deal for a really solid running back. We'll see how they utilize him and if they get him the football in a passing capacity, in a pass catching capacity, rather, a little bit more in their scheme. So those are the running backs right now. As the news continues to trickle in, we'll see what happens with that. We get to the receivers. We knew about T. Higgins being franchise tag. We knew about Mike Evans and his 2-year deal to remain a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. We know about Michael Pittman Jr. getting a franchise tag. What you might not have seen is that he re-signed with the Colts on a 3-year, $70 million deal. So the franchise tag has been removed. He's now gotten locked into a long-term deal to keep him with the team for at least the next 2, possibly 3 seasons. Nelson Aguilar re-signs in Baltimore on a 1-year, $3.75 million deal. Kendrick Bourne, which is a good sign for the Patriots. He must be healthy because I actually like Kendrick Bourne. He tore his ACL last year. The offense kind of went to hell in a handbasket once he got hurt. He comes back on a 3-year, $19.5 million deal. That's a good get for Kendrick Bourne. Demarcus Robinson re-signs with the Rams on a 1-year, $4 million deal. He actually played really well for the Rams last season. I think he was a bit of a revelation for them. So we'll keep tabs on the rest of those receivers. Tight ends, we know about Dalton Schultz re-signing with the Texans on a 3-year, $36 million deal. Hunter Henry re-signed with the Patriots on a 3-year, $27 million deal. You'd like to think that those guys are going to kind of set the market there. So no one's going to get more than the $12 million per year that Dalton Schultz got. Henry getting $9 million. I think everybody else falls underneath Henry at $9 million. Still a number of names left. Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, et cetera, et cetera. Colby Parkinson signs a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. So he leaves one team in the division. I always tell you, the team that is most likely to sign your stuff away is a team in the division because they've seen that player up close and personal, know what he can do. And so Colby Parkinson goes from the Seahawks to the Rams on a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. He comes over and he's going to help take a little bit of that stress off the tight end position for the Rams. Jonnu Smith signed a 2-year, $8.4 million deal with the Dolphins. He was released early on in the process, got an opportunity to negotiate a deal with the Dolphins and took advantage of that. And we know about Zach Ertz, his 1-year deal with the Commanders. Eagles re-upped with Albert O on a 1-year, $1.4 million deal. Charlie Werner signs a 3-year, $12 million deal with the Falcons. So one of the better third TEs in the league gets a nice 3-year, $12 million payday. And Johnny Munt re-signs with the Vikings on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. So really the tackle market has been largely untouched. You did get Chuck's Okorafor signing a 1-year, $4 million deal with the Patriots, but outside of that, no tackles have been moved quite yet. Not Mike Onwenu, Tyron Smith are the 2 big names. David Bakhtiari just entered the fray. We'll see if his stock is still relatively high. Jonah Williams, Mekhi Becton, those are some of the bigger names on this list. We'll see what happens as the dust settles and the smoke starts to clear. Obviously, the first domino falls, and then we'll probably see teams go for theirs. But right now, no one's really touched the tackle market quite yet. Guard, I thought would be a hot market this year. And oh boy, is it ever. Kevin Dotson re-signed with the Rams on a 3-year, $48 million deal. I told everybody that Robert Hunt was going to be the highest paid guard this free agency period. He was, to me, the biggest fish that I was really looking forward to seeing if Washington would go after because he's that good of a football player. Well, he signed a 5-year, $100 million deal to become a Carolina Panther. So they're really trying to fortify that line in front of Bryce Young, and that is a massive deal we're talking about there for Robert Hunt. But he's a young player going into the prime of his career, and that's a big signing for the Panthers. Jonah Jackson, another guy that I was very interested in, thought he would get good money, did exactly that on a 3-year, $51 million deal from the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are spending money. They're trying to get back into the fray, and they're spending their money right now on the offensive side of the football. That's another good signing there. Ezra Cleveland, as we already knew, heading into this period, re-signed with the Jaguars. They traded for Ezra Cleveland from the Minnesota Vikings last year. It read up on a 3-year, $24 million deal. Graham Glasgow re-signs with the Lions on a 3-year, $20 million deal. He was interesting. He was a little bit older than a lot of these guys, but he was still interesting nonetheless. I thought he was a guy that maybe wrestled away from Detroit. He goes back to the Lions there. So David Edwards re-signs with the Bills on a 2-year, $6 million deal. Cody Ford re-signs with the Bengals on a 1-year deal. So that's the guard market right now. That's a very active market. It's been hot. It's moving very quickly. We'll see still some names up there. John Runyon for me. John Simpson is another name. Kevin Zeitler's a little older, but he's a guy that's proven his ability to get it done in the league. Cody Whitehair. So there's still some names on this list. Damian Lewis, Dalton Reisner are some names to keep an eye on as that guard market has been moving very quickly. Center was another interior offensive line position or group that I thought could have some activity early. I didn't expect this much activity this early in the process, but I'm not surprised by it. Lloyd Cushenberry signs with the Titans, so he leaves the Denver Broncos and signs with the Tennessee Titans. Connor James re-signs with the Raiders on a 3-year, $24 million, or excuse me, Andre James re-signs on a 3-year, $24 million deal. So that's a good guy for the Raiders to keep around. Tyler Biadasz signs with the Commanders on a 3-year, $30 million deal. So he'll come in more likely than not to be the Commanders starting center. Mitch Morse signs a 2-year, $10.5 million deal to go to the Jaguars. He was released by the Bills just recently. So he finds a home with the team that he thinks he can win with right away. So that's the center market. And that's actually moving a little bit more rapidly than I thought, to see 3 centers kind of go off the board relatively quickly in this process. A little surprising to me, although I knew that the centers would be an interesting position to take a look at. So edge rusher, another one of those premium positions that you expected to move quickly. Bryce Huff signs a 3-year, $51 million deal. That's a lot of money for a guy that is just a hired gun. But if there's one team that could sign him to that deal and feel good about it, I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles, just off the strength of the fact that they won't need him to play first and second down. They can kind of deploy him as the Jets did. They've got so many defensive linemen that on first and second down, they can put a multitude of guys out there that allow him to just come into the game on third downs. It'll be interesting to see how the Eagles utilize him. Again, $17 million per year for a guy that just gets after the quarterback is a lot of money. But if you can afford to do it, and he continues to post the numbers that he's posted the last couple of years in terms of win rate, then that's a hell of a signing for the Philadelphia Eagles to get a guy like Bryce Huff off the edge. Jonathan Grenard was the target that I had, and I knew he was going to get broken off. Probably the best edge rusher, not named Danielle Hunter, available this cycle at the edge rushing position. Signs a 4-year, $76 million deal. So just a shade under $20 million a year there for Jonathan Grenard. 19 per is exactly what I thought it would be, somewhere in that range. He's a really good edge rusher, and they're going to lose Danielle Hunter. They replace him with a guy that's younger that they feel like can pick up where Danielle Hunter left off. Jonathan Grenard had 12.5 sacks last year, so they feel really good about adding him. And then they added Andrew Van Ginkel. We'll get to him here in a bit, but they added Andrew Van Ginkel across from him as well. So the Vikings getting busy relatively early in this process. Brandon Graham re-signs a 1-year deal to stay with the Eagles, so he'll finish up his career as an Eagle, it looks like. Dorrance Armstrong signs a 3-year, $33 million deal with the Commanders. So again, another Cowboy added to the mix for the Washington Commanders. Not a surprise. Neither one of those signings surprise any Commanders fan that's been tapped into what was going on. We knew that Dan Quinn was going to bring some former Cowboys with him. We didn't know how many. 2 so far. We'll see if they make it a 3rd or even a 4th. There's still guys out there available that the Commanders are supposed to be rumored to be interested in. So we'll see what happens there. Tyquan Lewis resigns on a 2-year deal to stay with the Indianapolis Colts, and LJ Collier resigns a 1-year deal with the Arizona Cardinals. So that's the edge rusher market thus far. Still a lot of names left there as well. Chase Young, Jadeveon Clowney, Zadarius Smith is probably the one that sticks out the most, because I think he's the guy, along with Leonard Floyd, who's been really good of late. These are the guys that I think stand out like a sore thumb. And Danico Autry also is a guy that signed with the Houston Texans, and he's another one similar to Zadarius Smith. Even though he's up there in age, he seems to find a way to get the job done. He's really good on the interior, is Danico Autry. So Another guy there that is off the list at the edge rushing position. 2 years, $21 million for Danico Autry. So we move on to the interior defensive line. Man, did we see a massive deal be signed by Chris Jones yesterday. 5 years, $158 million. Wow, what a deal. I was shocked to see those numbers. I knew he was going to get broken off. He deserves to be broken off. I did not expect that number to exceed $30 million per year, but that is in fact what happened for Chris Jones. Good for him. This is going to allow him to finish out his career pretty much as a Kansas City Chief, and he's earned it. I mean, he showed his worth last year when he didn't play in week 1. They lost, and they felt his presence when he was not in the lineup. And then obviously what he was able to do throughout the course of the season and in the Super Bowl, he might have been the most influential defensive player, including getting that big pressure at the end of the game when the 49ers had wide open receivers all over the place that would have resulted in the 49ers taking the lead in overtime. So on a touchdown, not a field goal. So big deal for Chris Jones to go back to the Kansas City Chiefs. Speaking of big deals, Justin Madubuike got a 4-year, $98 million deal. Remember, he was slapped with the franchise tag. Ravens were able to reach that long-term deal and were able to lock up their big defensive tackle who got over double-digit sacks a season ago. Speaking of big-time signings on the interior, Christian Wilkins, we knew he was going to get broken off. Did not know he was going to get broken off quite like this. 4 years, $110 million for Christian Wilkins. Again, did not see that type of money going his way. That is a massive deal, pushing, up towards $30 million a year. He's in that 27 or so, $27.5 million range. Massive deal. Raiders now pair him with Max Williams on that defensive line, and things could get really ugly and murky for some of the teams in that division with those two getting after the quarterback. Fletcher Cox announced his retirement, so he joins Jason Kelsey as another Eagle to retire this offseason. So Belial Nichols signs with the Arizona Cardinals on a 3-year, $30 million deal. So that's the defensive tackle market. Still a number of names left, like Leonard Williams, Calais Campbell, DJ Reader. Eric Armstead was released by the 49ers last night. So he joins Javon Kinlaw as two former San Francisco 49ers available on the market. So a lot of names left on that list. As we move on to linebacker, as I mentioned, Andrew Van Ginkel signed up to become a Minnesota Viking. So that's a guy that they're going to pair on that defense more likely than not with the addition of Jonathan Grenard. So you see that market developing quickly. Drew Tranquil re-signs with the Chiefs, 3 years, $19 million. We talked about that already. Here's another one. Blake Cashman signs a 3-year deal with the Minnesota Vikings. So like I talked about already, the Vikings are very active in free agency very early on. It seems like them and the Packers are a lot more aggressive in free agency than we're used to seeing. So Cashman goes from the Texans to the Vikings on a 3-year deal. That's a really good get. He was awesome last season, and he'll fit right in like hand in glove in that defensive scheme deployed by Brian Flores in Minnesota. So a lot of big names at the linebacker position still available. And I expected this to be one of those wait and see type of positions. Patrick Queen, I thought would go quickly, but you know how it goes with the linebackers. And I think there's question marks about Patrick Queen. So we'll see what ultimately happens. I think his market can be depressed. And I think he thought he was going to come out here and kill it. And I don't know if he actually will kill it from a money standpoint. He was probably thinking he was going to net $80+ million on a contract. I could see teams kind of using the depth of this position. You got Bobby Wagner, Levante David. I don't think he's leaving Tampa Bay. Devin White, Jordan Brooks, Frankie Louvu, Kenneth Murray Jr., Azeez Al-Shire, Jordan Hicks. So many guys, Isaiah Simmons, Josie Jewell. There's so many names. Blake Cashman already signed, as I mentioned. Drew Tranquil went back to Kansas City. So many names out here that I think you can use that against Patrick Queen to kind of box him out a bit, force that number down. So we'll see what happens with that linebacker market in particular. Cornerbacks, another premium position. Haven't seen as much movement as I thought we would have seen to this point. Jalen Johnson re-signed with the Bears. He was another guy on a franchise tag, got the 4-year, $76 million deal. So Jalen Johnson locks up long-term with the Bears. L'Jarius Sneed was franchise tag. Still waiting to see if a deal is consummated there where he's traded. I think he's still more likely to end up on another team than back with Kansas City after that massive deal they just signed Jones too. So we'll see what happens there. Sean Murphy Bunting was an interesting prospect out there. He signed a 1-year deal with the Arizona Cardinals. Isaiah Oliver signed a 1-year deal with the New York Jets. Emmanuel Mosley signed a 1-year deal to go back to the Detroit Lions. 1-year, $2.87 million deal. Troy Hill resigns with the Panthers on a 1-year, $1.3 million deal. Desmond King goes back to the Texans on a 1-year, $1.8 million deal. And Lonnie Johnson goes back to the Texans on a 1-year deal. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw Jeff Okudah also went to the Houston Texans on a 1-year deal. I've seen conflicting reports there. I've seen Falcons, I've seen Texans, but I've seen Texans more. So I'm going to go with the Texans right now, that he is a Houston Texan on a 1-year deal. I think it's 1 year, $4.75 million, if I'm not mistaken, for the former Atlanta Falcon corner. So we go to the safety market. This is an interesting market. Similar to linebacker, we really haven't seen as much movement there because there's so many options. I think teams are waiting out this market to make sure that they don't overspend on a corner. You're going to wait until Antoine Winfield, who was franchise tagged by the Bucs, see if he gets a long-term deal to kind of see where everybody needs to fall. If that doesn't happen, Xavier McKinney got a deal from Green Bay. We wait to see what that number looks like. Whatever that number is, everybody else is going to fall in behind that, with the exception maybe of Justin Simmons. He may top what Xavier McKinney gets. I think it may not be as many years, but from an AAV standpoint, he'll probably leapfrog Xavier McKinney. We'll see what happens. But Xavier McKinney is a Green Bay Packer. Again, as I mentioned, not very often you see the Packers and the Vikings this aggressive in free agency, but they are both out here improving their roster via free agency, spending some bread this period, which is not something we're accustomed to seeing. Kyle Duggar was transition tagged by the Patriots. We'll see if somebody signs him to a sheet that then the Patriots have an opportunity to match. Kevin Byard, I think he might have been one of the smart ones, which was to go and sign early. He had the benefit of doing that. Most of these guys weren't free agents to the point where they had been released by their former team and could sign a deal with another team. But he got out in front of this mess. 2 years, $15 million to go be a Chicago Bear. I think it's a smart move because I think this safety market is not going to be as robust as a lot of people think. Darnell Savage signs a 3-year deal to become a Jacksonville Jaguar. So Jaguars throwing out a little bit of money. Brandon Jones, another nice little deal here. 3-year, $20 million deal. A guy that I was eyeballing as a potential replacement on the Commanders roster. He's now gone to the Denver Broncos. Daniel Thomas re-signs on a 2-year, $4 million deal with the Jaguars. Taylor Rapp, earlier on in this process, re-signed on a 3-year, $10.62 million deal with the Bills. PJ Locke re-signs on a 2-year, $7 million deal with the Broncos. So that's the safety market right now. Very wide open. As we can see, Jeremy Chin, Alohi Gilman, Eddie Jackson, Geno Stone, Justin Simmons, Cam Curl, all still available. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Julian Blackmon. I mean, all of the names are still there. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Rayshawn Jenkins, Jamal Adams. They're all here. The list is long. It's deep. Pause. And I think you're going to see that amount of guys really oversaturating the market. And I think it's going to push that number down. So I don't expect to see this market really come to shape until the dust kind of settles and the smoke clears a bit, if that makes sense. This kicker market has been really active. So Kiemi Fairbairn got a 3-year deal worth almost $16 million to stick with the Texans. So that's a good deal for him. Greg Zuerlein re-signed on a 2-year, $8.4 million deal to stay with the Jets. Chase McLaughlin re-signed with the Bucks on a 3-year, $12.3 million deal. Will Lutz signed with the Jags on a 3-year deal. Michael Badgley re-signed with the Lions on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. So teams are taking care of their kickers. There's some teams where I'm asking, what are you waiting on, right? Like Brandon McManus isn't going to be back with the Jags, clearly, with them going in the Will Lutz direction. Joey Sly hasn't been re-signed with Washington yet. Want to know what's going on there. So we'll see what happens. But this veteran kicker market is not good. So you don't want to wait too long if you're Washington in terms of making a decision on Joey Sly. So let's see. Nothing else really to report right now from a signing standpoint. But let's check social media to make sure. Raiders look like they're going to sign Gardner Minshew to a 2-year deal. That's a good signing there. In case they don't get anybody in the draft at quarterback, at least it gives them somebody that gives them a chance. He was within a hair of taking the Indianapolis Colts to the playoffs last year. So if worst case scenario, he gives them a veteran that they can stick in there, it's not going to move the needle, though. So obviously, we'll see what happens. But that's actually a good landing destination for him, and it gives the Raiders a little bit of an insurance policy, so to speak. Josh Jacobs, 4 years, $48 million. So what did I tell you? $12 million, right? Like that. We knew it was going to be. He wasn't going to eclipse Saquon Barkley's deal, which was roughly 13 and some change. But I thought he'd be in that 12 and a half range. 4 for 48 is 12. That's what we expected. And I expect the rest of those running backs to fall in line underneath Josh Jacobs, right? So anybody else that gets a deal, it'll be in that same range. It'll probably be more like 3 years, $33 million, or 3 years, 33 and a half or 34, something like that. They won't eclipse, if it's 3 years and 36, that'll be equal or equivalent to Josh Jacobs, but you've got to be on his level to be able to get a deal that's comparable to his. So, or I should say the same as his. So I don't see too many more guys eclipsing that. I don't think Aaron Jones is going to eclipse that when he ultimately decides on a team and signs a deal. But we've seen that market take shape. So that's awesome. Texans agree to terms with Mike Ford on a 2-year, $4.5 million deal. Ravens, Geno Stone to the Bengals. So that's an interesting move. Again, I told you, you're more likely to see somebody in the division snatch your stuff up because they've had a nice close look at it for multiple years. And so Geno Stone packing up his things and heading to the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's see. And then I mentioned already Gus Edwards going to the Los Angeles Chargers. So that's another move to keep an eye on. I don't think the Gardner Minshew move takes the Raiders out of the quarterback market from a Justin Fields trade standpoint, but the trade market for Fields is shrinking very rapidly. The Bears are not being put in a good position right now, with the Steelers making a decision, with the Falcons making a decision, and now the Raiders making a pseudo decision. Where does Justin Fields end up now, right? The Broncos are in a position to draft a quarterback. The Vikings are somewhat, I think they're ahead of the 40. I don't know. I think they're actually behind the Raiders in the draft order. So the Raiders would have a crack at a quarterback before the Vikings. So that they could be a trade up candidate, could the Minnesota Vikings, to try to get their guy in the draft now that Kirk Cousins is no longer in the mix. I can't see the Vikings wanting to trade for Justin Fields. So it feels like his market is almost all but evaporated at this point. Be interesting to see what happens with Justin Fields and if the Bears have to eat this one. I can't imagine a scenario in which he doesn't end up gone. Like, there's no way you draft Caleb Williams and Justin Fields is still there. That would be animosity to a million, because there are already people in that locker room. There are already players in that locker room that believe in Justin Fields. So then you would have a Justin Fields team Fields clique. Then you would have the rest of the squad who's trying to give the young rookie a chance. That could get ugly. They know that. They know that dynamic is not one that you want to entertain. And so something's got to be done. And what's ultimately going to happen is they're going to have to give him away for a song, right? Obviously, you would want to not go any lower than a 3rd round pick, is my guess. That would be my guess, but you will see. We'll see how it all shakes out. But wow, not looking too good for Justin Simmons and Justin Fields rather, and the Chicago Bears in terms of that market. All right, so let's get to the comment section and talk about all the things that you guys want to talk about. And let me just check socials one more time and make sure that nothing else has taken place. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I know good and well I don't believe nothing Josina Anderson says, but reportedly Washington is supposed to be in conversations with Austin Eckler, which I wouldn't have any issues with, but I am a big speed guy. Austin Eckler is not a speed guy. I'm interested in speed, and more speed. So that would be a bit disappointing to me, because what that would effectively do is it would probably take you out of the running back market in the draft. There's not a ton of guys with, game-changing speed in the draft, but there are several that I would have loved to have entertained. You sign Austin Eckler, any other back for that matter, and you're really taking yourself out of that mix. So, and look, speed isn't everything. But when you don't have it, it is everything. And we don't have it at the running back position. So I would really like to see them address that with somebody with a change of speed, a different gear, rather. I don't think Austin Eckler is any faster than Brian Robinson Jr. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, like always, Josina Anderson's wrong. That's the hope. But I wouldn't be mad if they signed him. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't hate it. I just wouldn't love it. So let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. Y'all know how this works. If you're out there, you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. Super chats are the way to ensure that your comment is read. Jump straight to the front of the line and make sure your voice is heard. So CJ Shoots photo. Matter of fact, let me get to these supers first. Jacino6, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I hope we get Jeremy Chin and Al Shire. We'll see. Everything is fluid, touch and go, as I've mentioned. Those two positions, I think, are going to take a little while to kind of manifest themselves and materialize, because there's an influx and there's an oversaturation of both of those markets. Nobody wants to feel like they're overpaying, so you're kind of trying to wait for that first domino to fall. I think most teams would love to see Patrick Queen's deal get done first, so that they can then know, hey, where do we fall in here? There's some guys that are unique, like Devin White. He's going to sign a unique deal because there's really no one to comp him to say, hey, this is the deal we should give you. And I think if you like Kenneth Murray, you're going to base your deal off of whatever Devin White signs for, but you're going to make sure it's less because he's not Devin White, but he's a former first-round pick like Devin White. He's got the same kind of athletic profile as a Devin White. And so I think you slot him behind wherever Devin White goes from a money and year standpoint. So I think it's going to be a wait-and-see approach from the linebacker position. Same thing with the safety. I'm still waiting on Xavier McKinney's numbers. I think once you see that, you may start to see other safeties kind of fall in line there. But both of those markets are so oversaturated. I think it's going to be one of those supply demand situations where those markets are depressed because there is an oversupply for the demand that's out there. And I think teams are going to use that against these players to drive the price down. Let's get to another super here. Antoine Hoskins. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Antoine writes, "Hey, Lou, I'm a huge fan of yours. Love what you do for this fan base. I appreciate you, Antoine. Thank you so much for the support." Swaggy P, been a member for 16 months. Really appreciate you. Writes, "I need Kirk's agent to do negotiations for my job." Look, man, Kirk be out here getting it, man. I love it. I love what Kirk's done. The finesse game is strong. One of the strongest we've ever seen in NFL history. Him and Darrelle Revis, man, those two right there. And Clowney's slowly climbing up that ladder, but it ain't Kirk Cousins. Nobody did it like Kirk. The quarterback money hits different than anybody else's, any other position's money, and Kirk's done it at the highest levels. We need a study done, right? We need a Harvard research study done on Kirk Cousins' ability to finesse the system. Like, he's done it like over 2 or 3 different CBAs. He's finessed the system, it feels like. Anyway, CJ Shoots Photo, been a member for 30 months. Who writes, "Still available. Makai back to Tyron Smith and Jonah Williams. Get a tackle." Another one of those markets where I think they're trying to wait to see how it develops. It's not a deep tackle market. So once the first guy who they perceive to be the top tackle, which I would assume is Tyron Smith, now with David Bakhtiari entering that mix, he's kind of in that same Tyron Smith level in terms of age and resume. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer at all, but he would probably be the next guy. If you're thinking you're going to try to win a Super Bowl or you're making that push and you're looking for a veteran on that offensive line, Bakhtiari might be the next guy up. But I think once you see one of the top guys get paid, then that trickle-down effect starts to take place, I think. But you never know. Go get yours. If you can find a deal that makes sense for both parties, you just go ahead and skip the line, right? So we'll see what happens there. Mike Jink, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, "Louie Lou, what up, Mike Jink?" Says, "Howie's swiping that card today." I see, yeah, man. Howie's out here making those moves, swiping the card. You know, his card always is accepted, right? He never leaves home without it. And I haven't seen him swipe that shit and it come up invalid yet, right? I keep waiting for his shit to get declined. And you know how they got those self-checkout ones, and it just depends on what store you at. It'll embarrass your ass, right? Because that shit'll be loud, like, card declined. Please use another form of payment. Like, hey, shut your ass up. You too goddamn loud, right? How we should always go through, right? Just that beep, just that clean beep, right? Payment accepted. And they just print out his receipt. And he don't even take the receipt. He just leave it there for the next person so they can see how he living. You know, getting Saquon, that's an upgrade. Getting Bryce Huff, that's an upgrade over the pass rush that you had last year. He's out here spending like how he does, man. So we'll see. We'll see if he's able to retool this thing and get you guys right back to where you were. But it's definitely not going to be for a lack of trying. That's for sure. John Perez, my guy, JP. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, "Damn it, Lou. Swift to Chicago and Barkley to Philly. Not a surprise on either front. I told you that the running back position would simply be nothing more than merely a reshuffling of the deck. All of these teams were losing running backs, so you knew that they were going to be in the market for a running back, a replacement for the guy that was leaving. And so you know what's crazy? Obviously, the Giants signing Motor Singletary, that deal isn't going to be anywhere near the deal that Saquon Barkley signed. So you can understand it from their perspective. But when you look at like the Packers moving on from Aaron Jones, and obviously the deals that they signed in the past were set up differently, and the amount of guarantees, this, that, and the third were different. But you just gave Josh Jacobs $12 million per year. If you're the Packers, you could have just held on to Aaron Jones and but again, Jones, I would assume, I can't confirm this, but I feel pretty confident in saying this. Josh Jacobs is younger than Aaron Jones, so you're resetting that date, right? That expiration date on the position. Meanwhile, you look at the Bears, they moved on from Montgomery last year, and then they go pay money to DeAndre Swift this year, right? So Dallas still waiting to see what they ultimately do, but the Titans let Derrick Henry walk. Boom, they go and replace him with Tony Pollard, right? So it's just a game of musical chairs. The Texans still haven't gotten themselves back. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Aaron Jones either signs with the Houston Texans or the Dallas Cowboys. Having played his football at UTSA in Texas, he's from Houston, Texas. I would assume Aaron Jones is going to end up somewhere in the state of Texas. Whether the Cowboys or the Texans, we'll see where he ends up. I'd obviously prefer him to be a Houston Texan and not a Dallas Cowboy, but we'll see what happens there. Saquon going to Philly. We talked about that on the show last week, that there were rumors about Saquon having interested teams within the division. Dallas was supposed to be interested. Philadelphia was supposed to be interested. So not a surprise that he just continues to make the trek down south, right? Went from the Giants down just a little down I-95 to the Philadelphia Eagles. And so not a surprise at all. Silver Fox, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Silver Fox writes, LT, thanks for all the reporting. Appreciate you. I appreciate you, Silver Fox. Says, getting a veteran center will help our new quarterback immensely. I think it's a great signing. You? Yeah, I told you I didn't have any issues with them signing a veteran center. I would have gone in a different direction. I would have taken those resources and spent it on an interior guard specifically. But I don't have any issues with this because we don't know what Ricky Stromberg is. My whole thought process was you won't know unless you give him a shot. And he may still get that shot. I can't envision a scenario in which you spend, $30 million. And let's just say Tyler Biadasz signed a deal where they could get out after 2 years and having paid him $20 million. I still find it hard to believe that you're going to pay a guy $10 million per year to come in here and sit on the bench. I just don't see that. So Stromberg right now feels like a competent backup, which I don't care which way it's assembled, whether he's the backup or he's the starter. They needed to have an insurance policy in place. And it seems like the insurance policy is now going to be Ricky Stromberg. Okay, fine by me. I don't give a shit. I just wanted the position to be fixed. I wanted to see Stromberg get a chance because it would save you money if he was the answer. You spent the third-round pick on him. But as I mentioned to you multiple times, they didn't spend a third-round pick. The last regime did. So they may not think highly enough of Ricky Stromberg to just go into the season with him penciled in as the starter, bringing in a low-level center to compete with him. They much rather have a upgrade over the center position and have him compete with that guy. And if he can't beat that guy out, he'll be a competent backup to Tyler Biadasz. And I think that's the way they're viewing it instead of it the other way around, which is fine by me. I don't have any issues with it going the direction that they did it in. I think it's a very solid signing. Great is a bit of a overstatement for me personally, but I think it's a good signing. I don't have any issues with it. Barry Curtis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Barry writes, was cool with Dorrance until I saw 15. So the number is actually 11, right? 3 years, $33 million. It can get to 45 with incentives. So if he's killing it, the deal has the flexibility in the room for it to grow where he doesn't feel underpaid for what he's doing. If he's hitting certain landmarks every year, he's going to see tons of bonuses. If he's on the roster, I would assume a couple of these bonuses are roster bonuses on the roster by X said date, which is going to put Washington in a position to cut him, save money. Such, but if he's playing well, you're not going to want to cut him, right? So he's going to see that money if he's playing at a very high level, unless Washington is hard up against the cap and need that space, right? Which I don't see them being in that position 2-3 years down the road right now. But, things change very rapidly in this league. We'll see what happens. But right now, he's got a chance to earn that money, right? If he's out there balling and he takes another step from where he was in Dallas, where he was, he hasn't hit double digits yet. So let's say the first year in his clause, if you hit 10 or more sacks, that's a $2.5 million bonus, right? So he's got ways to activate the amount of money that he could potentially get to in that deal. But it's really 3 years, $33 million, so 11 per. So that's good money. That's right where you wanted to be, right? The Eagles are spending $17 million a year for a guy that can't play on first and second down, essentially. So I feel good about 11 for a guy that should be able to play all 3 downs versus a guy that's a one-trick pony. Now he's a damn good, one-trick pony. And if the Eagles, which I think they're in a position to be able to not have to play him the way that we would if we were to sign Bryce Huff, right? They got enough guys on that D-line where he doesn't have to be on the field on first and second down. They got Josh Huff. They got the edge rusher from Georgia last year, Nolan Smith. Those two can play on first and second down. And if you feel the need to then insert Bryce Huff on third downs, you have the luxury of doing that. Most teams don't have that luxury. Now, remember, they are currently shopping Josh Sweat, who I think is a really good edge rusher. So we'll see. That might open up the door for Bryce Huff to play all 3 downs. I'm interested to see because he couldn't stop the run. That was his bugaboo in New York with the Jets. So we'll see what happens. But we expected activity on that edge rushing position fairly early, and we've gotten it to that point. So let's see if anything else has transpired that we may have missed. So the Titans are expected to sign Chidobe Awuzie to a 3-year deal. So when he's healthy, he's been damn good. The problem with him has been health. That's been the thing that has held him back. So that's another sign. 49ers are signing veteran pass rusher Leonard Floyd to a 2-year, $20 million deal. So that's going to be their replacement for Chase Young. They're going to let him walk, which makes a ton of sense. Floyd was outstanding this year, led the Bills, and set a career high for himself with 10.5 sacks. Gumby was a guy I was keeping my eye on, really playing good football right now, and he's being rewarded on a 2-year, $20 million deal. So good for him. The Bucs are re-signing defensive tackle Greg Gaines to a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. So looks like those are all of the most notable deals. I've already mentioned that Devin Singletary, Motor Singletary, as most of us know him as, is signing with the Giants. I don't expect that to be for a ton of money. So here's the numbers on Xavier McKinney. I don't know if you guys were privy to this. You probably were. But Xavier McKinney, 4 years, $68 million. So you're talking about, let's see, 15 would have been 60. 16 is 64. So $17 million per year for Xavier McKinney per year on a 4-year, $68 million deal. So that's, to me, the bar for the safety market. No one is exceeding. I told you the 2 guys at the safety position that would get paid, Xavier McKinney and Justin Simmons. Simmons, I don't think he's going to sign a 4-year deal wherever he goes, but I could see him signing a 2-year, $32 million deal. It might not be 17 per, but it might be 16 per, right? You could see him signing a 2-year, $30 million deal for 15 per. Those are the 2 guys that are going to get paid. Every other safety, I think, is going to find themselves in that 10, 9, 8, 7. You saw Kevin Byard sign for $15 million over 2 years, 7.5. I think that's where this market is going to end up settling in. And so I think Xavier McKinney is the high mark. I don't even know if Justin Simmons is going to get a $17 million per a year deal from wherever he signs. So I think Simmons is the one guy that could top that. I could see him getting a 2-year, $36 million deal, 2-year, $38 million deal. But it would be like incentives. It'd be more like 2 years, $32 million with the ability to get to $39 million, right? Which would put him slightly above the mark set here by Xavier McKinney on a per average base. But that's a good deal for Xavier McKinney. Knew he was going to get paid, wasn't sure by whom. Packers step up, break him off. They replaced, because as I mentioned, they just lost their safety who went to Jacksonville. Shucks. Let me get his name. What's the dang on safety's name? Shucks, I can't remember his name from the from Maryland. Darnell Savage. Thank you, Joshua Miller. Darnell Savage left, went to Jacksonville. So they had to replace a safety, and they do it in a major way by getting Xavier McKinney, who was the biggest name really on the safety market. So let's see if anything else has happened. Teron Armstead is back with the Dolphins. We all expected that to happen. So nothing new there. Justin Jones, defensive tackle, agrees to a deal with the Arizona Cardinals, 3 years, $30 million. So they're keeping their defensive tackle in the fold in Arizona. So there's another deal there. So continuing to see the market take shape at specific positions. Gardner Minshew's deal is a 2-year deal worth $25 million, 15 of it guaranteed. That's a good deal for Gardner Minshew. A good deal, which, again, gives them, I think, some flexibility at the quarterback position. It gives them security in the event that things don't go the way that they would like them to go. They've got a guy that they can trot out there. They couldn't have their quarterback situation be the way that it was. They needed a contingency plan in the event that they don't land a rookie quarterback, or they don't put themselves in a position to get a higher level veteran. They needed to be where they could at least compete. You couldn't compete with the roster the way that it was at the quarterback position. So good for them. Biggest surprise right now for me was the deal that Robert Hunt got. I knew he would get paid. I did not expect him to crack $20 million per year. That's the biggest surprise to me right now. No one destination is a surprise or a shock, but that amount of money is a bit of a shock to the senses. I knew he would get broken off, but not quite like that. So let's get back to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Silver Fox 52, been a member for 25 months. Hey, Lou, your thoughts on the 49ers signing Lloyd, no Chase Young? That makes a ton of sense. I didn't think he would be back after the performance that they saw from him. They expected a lot more from Chase Young when they traded for him. Like I said, it felt like we stole a 3rd-round pick for him. I don't care that it was a compensatory 3rd-round pick, because we weren't going to get that for him in free agency. As you can see, he hasn't signed yet. And if he was this big name free agent, he would have been gone at a position like edge rusher. He would have been already gone off the market, right? They were disappointed in what they got. They should have been. And, they realized what we already knew in Washington, which was he was overrated. And I don't think he'll ever be the guy that we thought he was going to be as the number 2 overall pick. But I'll take it a step further. I don't think he'll ever be the guy that he was in his rookie season because he was dominant in his rookie season. He impacted games as a rookie. That injury, I don't think he'll ever be the same. And mentally, I think that injury exposed some flaws in Chase Young's mentality, right? I think it exposed how much he loved football. It exposed his mental toughness in certain degrees. He was a guy that you didn't question his effort before the injury. He just seemed like a different player after it, right? It almost felt like that injury did something to him mentally. Like he saw the way people responded to him getting injured and it did something to him. And now his love for the game has kind of been lost. He's playing like a guy that doesn't necessarily love it anymore. He's kind of just playing for a check. That's what it feels like. I can't confirm that, but some of his performances in San Francisco felt lifeless. They felt like he was going through the motions, and that's not the Chase Young that we saw in his rookie season, where he was balls to the wall. Him and Montez Sweat would play extremely hard. You know, Chase Young would be chasing down screens, retracing his steps, flying around. Like we haven't seen that guy since his rookie season. Even in his second year when he was struggling to get to the quarterback, he was still busting his ass out there against the run and screens and things of that nature. You didn't see that post-injury. So I'm not shocked that the 49ers are like, nah, we got to get an upgrade. This guy isn't cutting it. And they just went and got a guy that set a career high in 10.5 sacks in Leonard Floyd. I don't blame him. The 49ers are in win-now mode. They're trying to win a Super Bowl. They don't have time to wait on Chase Young to figure it out. So not surprised that they went in a different direction away from Chase Young. So let me keep my social media open and buzzing just in case something else pops. I need to see it. Right now, it doesn't seem like anything new has taken place. But you know, as I've mentioned to you guys before, everything is fluid. And these things happen so quickly. All right, so nothing new right now. Let's get to the comment section. See what you guys are talking about. Nate Master, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Nate Master writes, you think Pat Queen or other big names to DC? We'll see. I'm not a big fan of Patrick Queen from the standpoint of I'm not sure how he plays by himself. Now, I like his skill set. I love his speed. I loved him coming out of LSU, but I wasn't blown away with him until he got next to Roquan Smith. We don't have a Roquan Smith. So you're asking Robin to be Batman, I think, with Patrick Queen. And so I'm not comfortable with that. Because he's not going to want to be paid like Robin. He's going to want to be paid like Batman. And the question is, will somebody ante up? I don't know. That's a great question. If that number comes down, could I see him in Washington? Sure, absolutely. But as of right now, I don't know. I don't know if I see that for him. So, Game Bomber TV, Game Bomber 1 TV 2. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Giants are nearing a trade for Brian Burns. We heard that the Giants were interested in Brian Burns. We heard that they were interested in Danielle Hunter. I thought they would go the Danielle Hunter route, which I was cool with because, again, Hunter's a beast, but he's 30 years old, right? Brian Burns is a different animal. If they get their hands on, it's going to take a lot, and Carolina's not going to give him away for free. So they'd be stripping themselves, and I would assume if they're getting Brian Burns, they're giving up the 5th pick in the draft or wherever they're at, 6 or wherever the Giants are currently at. They're giving that pick up because the Panthers aren't going to give him away for free. So that would be a massive trade. We'll see what happens. Obviously, until it actually gets done, I can't see. I'm not going to speculate that's a big one, right? That's a huge one. So we got to wait and see how that all shakes out. But that's a massive move if they can get him via trade. At that age, he's probably one of the most dynamic players available, even via trade, but it's going to take a lot, right? Obviously. So let's get to, you just check one more time. I don't see any new developments. All right, everything looks like it's status quo right now. Nice and quiet. So let's go through back through the comment section and see what you guys are talking about, if anything. All right. John Wynn says, if Sam Howell stays in Washington, does he have to be forced to be QB2 as a backup? Yeah, I mean, if he's still in Washington, that you would assume that would be the case. I still think there's a chance they go after a veteran quarterback. I would be shocked if they don't. John Wynn also writes, if Russell Wilson is not the starter as QB1 in Pittsburgh's uniform, he should have retired in the first place. The assumption is he'll be the starter there, but if he can't beat out the guys that are currently there, really, I think it's only one other player there right now, and that's Kenny Pickett. If he can't beat out Kenny Pickett for the starting job, then yeah, he needs to go ahead and hang it up. I don't see them not having Russell Wilson as their starter. Let's see. All right. Yeah, I see y'all talking about Shogun. We checked out the preview. I don't know, man. That looks like it's a huge undertaking. I don't know if I'm ready to sign up for that. Too much backstory. You know, my wife, somebody's got to die within the first 12 seconds or she's not going for it. And maybe that's what's going down on that show, but I don't see it. I don't know if I can sign up for it or not, but I've heard nothing but good things about it from you guys. So, we'll see. Todd Labor. Thank you for the super chat. Or Todd Labor writes, do you think the Commanders will sign Tyron Smith and Derrick Henry in free agency? What do you think will one or the other? I don't think Derrick Henry, no. I know for sure not Derrick Henry, but maybe Tyron Smith. I wouldn't be shocked if Tyron Smith ends up here, but I don't see that happening. So breaking news. Former Panthers linebacker Frankie Louie agrees to a 3-year deal with the Commanders. Value of the deal is $36 million, which is a great deal. I love Frankie Louie. I told you guys he would probably be my highest linebacker target, because when I think of a Dan Quinn defense, I think of guys, and I told you this yesterday. I told you this on the linebackers video over the weekend. When I think of Dan Quinn's defense, I think about fast, physical, violent to the football, arriving with a temperament that is of someone who is a crazy man. I think of Frankie Louie. I think of Dan Quinn's defense, 11 hats to the football. I think of Frankie Louie. I told y'all that. So this is not a surprise to me. I'm excited. I told you if we got any of those linebackers, I would be excited. This is a great move for the Commanders, the one that I'm most excited about right now to this point. And this is one of the guys I wanted very badly in free agency. So this is going to be fun. You guys are going to love him. If you haven't watched Frankie Louie play football, you're going to love Frankie Louie immediately, because he plays with a reckless abandon that few guys that we've seen in Washington have played with over the years. So we are on the board with Frankie Louie at the linebacker position. So really loving what Washington is doing thus far. You took care of the trenches, both sides of the ball, and then you go out and you address another massive position of need. Still haven't addressed tackle, and I still think that's coming eventually at some point. And so Let me tweet out real quick. You're still going to need to upgrade a tackle. I think you got to do something. So I expect them to get that done here shortly. So I love that move. That is a big signing there. Abel Ambrosio, been a member for 16 months. Really appreciate you. Who writes Frankie Louie to Washington on a 3-year deal. We talked about that already. I'm going to be live tonight talking about all the moves the Commanders have made. We'll go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, talk about the ripple effects, what it means for the future of certain players, what it means for the rest of free agency, what it means potentially for the draft, et cetera, et cetera. We'll be live almost every day this week because I expect the Commanders to be aggressive. And I told you it's going to be fast and furious. We've already made 3 moves in this young period, tampering period. Tampering window has only been open for 5 hours, 5.5 hours, and we've already made 3 moves. So this is not a surprise to me. They're not done. There's still moves to be made, and we'll see what else they decide to do. But this is a big one. Getting Frankie Louie is huge for me. You guys knew how I felt about him, and y'all know what it is. So excited about Frankie Louie coming to Washington. So let's get back to the comment section, though. Let's see. We left off there. Let's continue on. John Wynn says, did Isaiah Pacheco re-sign his deal in Kansas City? He wasn't a free agent. He's still on a rookie deal. I think this was only year 2 for him. He still got like 2 more years left on his rookie contract. So he wasn't a free agent. John Wynn says, you're also right about social media from Panthers fans. I still have respect for Bryce Young, but Panthers fans need to get used to him. They kept hating on him last season. It's going to be tough until he plays well. Like, this is the scrutiny that you're under when you're the number 1 overall pick, when they gave up capital, including DJ Moore, to get you. They want to see immediate results. The problem was they didn't provide him with immediate results supporting cast. They didn't do that. And I'm subscribing to DJ's theory on young quarterbacks and needing to provide them with the 3 Ps, right? Protection, play calling, and I forgot the other P. It had something to do with playmakers. That's what it was. Playmakers, protection, play calling. They didn't provide them with any of the 3. No stability at either of those. So we'll see this year, right? We'll see what happens this year. They've already went out and spent big on solidifying the guard position with Robert Hunt. So they're spending some bread, right? Got to play. You got to pay to play, and they're paying to get their offensive line. AJ Epineza back in Buffalo on a 2-year deal, so that makes a ton of sense for Buffalo as they get him back in the mix. So Buffalo gets their man. Carolina wanted Frankie Louie back, but they could not. They couldn't go as high as Washington could. They couldn't get that money where it needed to go. And I told you one of the things that was a kicker for me with Frankie Louie. I say that for later on tonight. I won't talk your head off. I won't talk your head off about that right now. Let's keep going through the comment section and see what you guys are talking about. Let's see. I see somebody talking about Curtis Samuel probably being gone. I never expected him back. You haven't heard me talk about him. Most of these guys aren't going to be back. Again, they're going to turn this roster over. They're going to turn this thing completely on its head. So I don't expect him back. Let's see. Y'all and look, y'all keep talking about Joey Slye, but he can kick that ball out of the back of the end zone. If they change the kickoff rules, you're gonna want a guy like Joey Slye who's gonna still get you touchbacks. You don't want these kickoff returns, coming out to the 30, 36. Like, he's gonna become even more of an asset if they change the kickoff rules, because they're gonna move it back to the 30 from the 35. And he's one of those dudes that usually routinely kicks the shit out of the back of the end zone. So 5 yards isn't going to, he's still going to kick it in the back of the end zone, if not out of the end zone. Like, y'all better stop sleeping on this, man. Y'all do this all the time. And y'all think the grass is greener. And then y'all go out here and we've been out here struggling in these kicker streets. And y'all want to just go break back to the kicker streets again. Y'all be tripping, man. I don't know where some of y'all head be at. Y'all be forgetting things too damn quickly for me. We just was out here struggling with dudes kicking the ball in the back of linemen and shit with Chris Blewett. Y'all want to go back there? Y'all tripping, man. Oh man, y'all are tripping. I'm holding on to him, or I'm bringing him to camp. If they draft a kicker, so be it. If they get an undrafted kicker and they like him, bring him to camp. Let him compete. I'm not getting rid of that man until they get a replacement for him. Y'all tripping. We just better hope nobody snatches his ass up. I'm going to be pissed off if he gets signed up somewhere else, because we could be in trouble. You do not want to be out here on these kicker streets. All right, let's see. Patriots linebacker Mack Wilson, former Patriots linebacker, Mack Wilson signs with the Arizona Cardinals on a 3-year, $12.75 million deal. So, another name on that list, off that list at the linebacker position. And I told you, once you saw the number for, once we started to see some of these, numbers coming out, it was going to make the picture a lot clearer as to what was the going rate, right? So you knew the Commanders wanted to get in sooner rather than later. You don't want to wait till somebody gets paid, they get broken off, and then all of a sudden the price goes up for the guy that you were in negotiations with, right? Frankie Louvu, I love that one. Let's see if anything else has transpired thus far. All right, so the Browns re-signed Zadarius Smith. It's a great signing for them. I thought he was a great fit alongside Myles Garrett. He's so good as Zadarius Smith. He's just one of those dudes that just knows how to get, along with the defensive tackle that the Texans signed from Tennessee. They're just certain guys that know how to get to the quarterback, and it doesn't matter how old they are. They just know how to do it. And Zadarius Smith is just one of those dudes. I would have loved, if we were any good, he would have been one of my biggest targets of the offseason. He's so good, man. He's going back to Cleveland on a 2-year, $23.5 million deal, can get to $25 million, $12 million base in year one. So 2-year deal, signing back with the Browns. I think that's a great move for the Cleveland Browns. Let's see. A lot of argument over Antonio Gibson. Yeah, I'm happy for Gibbs, man. I'm happy for AB or AG, excuse me. Happy to see him go get paid, get him some money, man. I like him. I don't think we ever utilized him the way that he should have been used. So I'm glad he was able to get his bread. CJ Shoots photo, signed Louvu. Talked about that already. Sovereign Legacy. Frankie luxury signed. Absolutely. That's got to be a typo. Got to be a typo. Let's see. Big Daddy Butts writes, do you think Washington would trade Sam Howell for a second, third round pick and sign a veteran quarterback? Who's giving you a second round pick for Sam Howell? How I wouldn't turn a second round pick down for him. Who's giving you that though? The Bears are finding it tough to move Justin Fields. Who's giving you a second or a third round pick for Sam Howell? Don't buy the hype. I've seen the reports that Washington could get a third round pick. They're not getting a day 2 pick for Sam Howell. No way, no how. If the Bears are struggling to move Justin Fields, trust me. Now, the only difference is Sam has an extra year. Like Justin, you'd have to pick up his 5th-year option. With Sam, there is no 5th-year option. He's still got 2 years left on a rookie deal. So there's a little bit more flexibility and leeway there, but no way. I'm not buying that. Shout out to my guy, Frank McLaughlin. Again, Frankie, baby, thank you for the suggestion of the terminal list. I don't know if you were here earlier, but I gave you a shout out at the top of the show. Thank you for the shout out for the terminal list, Frank. Man, it's an excellent show. We are, I think, on episode 6. We got 3 left to go. It's been an excellent show thus far. Let's see. David Johnson writes, longtime fan of the show. What do you see in the plans for the Houston Texans after letting Jonathan Grenard go? There are a number of guys still available in free agency as edge rushers. So they've got places that they can go. Clearly, they can still address it in the draft. They don't have to do anything. They don't want to. They've been really good in the draft. Here recently, have the Texans, especially early in the draft in particular. So there's still a number of avenues for them to explore via free agency. And I'll give you a list of some of these free agents at the edge rushing position that are still available. And again, they're not going anywhere, because I think what you're going to ultimately find is that this market is going to settle. So Chase Young is still available. You could probably sign him to a 1-year deal if you're interested. Jadeveon Clowney, you could sign him to a 1-year deal. I think he would be, interested in a reunion back with the Texans. Emmanuel Ogbah is a really good guy that you could bring in. I think the floor is extremely high, but the ceiling is about the same as the floor with Emmanuel Ogbah. He's a 7.5 sack guy. You bring him in the mix, and he can offset some of the loss of that 12.5 sack production you got this past year. Marcus Davenport is an interesting one. I'd kind of stay away from him. You've already signed Danico Autry, who I think is a big, big signing for you. He's more of a guy you can kick inside like Zadarius Smith and win with his quickness against bigger guards inside. I don't love him as much outside, so you still need an edge rusher if you ask me. But Danico Autry is a huge, you add Emmanuel Ogbah with a Danico Autry, and you'll exceed the 12.5 sacks you got from Grenard last year. So there's still a number of guys available. So if you're the Texans, you still feel really good about what's available for you out on the market. So let's see if there's any more signings. Apparently, the Giants never offered Saquon Barkley anything. I think they were done with Saquon after how last year played itself out. I think they were going to move on. They didn't want to invest the kind of money in the position 2 years in a row. So Brian Ingram, HTTR, you know what it is. Let's see. Got another comment here. Monster, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, let's go. What do you think of Frankie Louvu pickup? I love it. You guys, you already know, Monster. You've been watching the videos, man. You already know what I've been saying. I'll elaborate on it more tonight. I'll really share how excited I am about it tonight and what were some of the tall tale signs for me as to why he would be a great fit and why I thought he was a guy we would go after aggressively. But I've already kind of laid a lot of that stuff out for you. You know, I love the pick. I predicted that he would be a guy that they should go after. I won't say that they would go after. I thought that he would be a great fit. And I said of all the players at the linebacker position, to me, he was the best fit. And we'll go through that again later on tonight. But I am ecstatic about that Frankie Louvu pickup for sure. Big time pickup. Let's see. Niners fan writes, haven't healed yet, Lou. I know those are rough, man. I think I told the story of my sister and when they lost 28-3 lead to the Patriots in the Super Bowl and how she was down bad for like 6 months. She couldn't even watch anything that had to do with football. We would go out for happy hour and she would turn her back to NFL Network because that was on, the television screens at the bar and stuff like that. So it's tough, man. It's tough when you can feel it. It's right there in the palm of your hand and then it slips away, right? But I'm shocked we got rid of Armstead, but love the Gumby signing. Been wanting him opposite of Boza for years. I love that signing for y'all. Like he would have been more of an impact guy last year than Chase Young and Randy Gregory were a season ago. You hate that it didn't come when you needed it because who knows what's going to happen this year if you're going to be able to stay healthy, if you're going to have the type of year you had last year. You can't be assured that you're going to get back there, right? But he's an upgrade over Chase Young and he's an upgrade over Randy Gregory. He's the perfect complement, like you said, on the other side to Boza. I was shocked by the Arik Armstead release as well, especially being that Javon Kinlaw is also gone. But clearly they feel like they can spread that money amongst other positions and they can attack defensive tackle. In the draft, there's a ton of defensive tackles in the draft that they probably feel comfortable replacing him with. So I'm not shocked by the decision to go elsewhere. I didn't see it coming, right? It makes sense when you think about it because you invested so much last year in the defensive tackle from Philadelphia, Javon Hargrave, said that you knew eventually you were going to have to cut bait somewhere along that defensive line. So not shocked that they made that decision. I was just shocked that they did it. I didn't see it coming, as you didn't either. But I love the move. Just like you love that move, I love the move as well. Monster, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, got here a little late. Love the channel. Thanks. Thank you for the support. Greatly appreciate you, Monster. Thank you for doubling up. And thank you for the support. If you haven't already done so, please do me a favor. Over 700 of you are out there. Only 192 likes. We can do so much better than that. Let's try to get those likes up over at least 300, okay? We're knocking on the door of 200. Let's push those likes up over 200, and let's head towards 300. If you're out there, really do appreciate you. Monster, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. Y'all know what to do. Show Monster some love. Open those arms wide and welcome him into the squad. Welcome aboard, Monster. So glad to have you on board. So let's get back to the comment section. And let me first check social media real quick and make sure that we have not missed anything from a signing standpoint. And see where we are. Looks like we are at a standstill right now from any new news. So we'll go back to the comment section and tap in. Just check all of the major ones. Maurice Hurst is re-signing in Cleveland with the Browns, a 1 year up to $3.2 million deal. Anthony Walker, the former Browns linebacker, is agreed to a 1 year deal with the Miami Dolphins. He was an interesting guy. Remember, Washington brought him in for a visit last year before he went back to Cleveland. So he was always a guy that I was keeping a watchful eye on. But again, I didn't expect him to end up in Washington or anything like that. So let's get back to the comment section. See where we were at. I think we were right around here. So I think we were right there. Let me make sure I didn't miss one. Yep. Okay. So we are right here. Sean Blake, who writes, you still think John Allen is on the trading block? Seems like everyone calmed down after the season. No, I didn't think he would get traded either. You know, you never want to talk to somebody as soon as the season's over because you're heavily invested. You're emotional at that point. That's why you got to wait 2 or 3 weeks to let that player calm down, let everything kind of work itself out. He needed to see the direction of the program, though. Had he not felt as confident in the new guys that they brought in, like Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr., I think those guys sold him, Adam Peters. I think that made him feel more at peace with sticking around and seeing this thing through because he really wants to see it through here. When you get drafted by a team and then they pay you, you want to see it work. So I don't see him getting traded. No, I don't. I don't rule anything out, though, however. But I don't see anything happening. Part of the allure and the attraction of Washington was having those 2 defensive tackles under contract for the next 2 years and knowing what that would provide Dan Quinn in this defense. One of the biggest issues Dallas had was stopping the run. You don't have that issue here just off the strength of those guys in the middle. Now you add guys like Frankie Louvu to the mix. That's going to also – I hope they're not done shopping at the Carolina store. Go get your Jeremy Chin while you're at it, right? That's what I hope. You don't have to stop there. Keep shopping at that Panther store. They got a lot of good shit over there, man. Got a lot of good shit over there. Got a super chat here from Brandon N. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Brandon writes, sup, Lou? A lot of cornerbacks available. Who catches your eye? I would be interested in Witherspoon, Darius Williams, or maybe even Shaq Griffin. Let me know. So, as you mentioned, a lot of corners available. Jeff Okudah is gone, so that's a little disappointing. But I knew he would be interesting from his background and a former top 5 pick. I was interested, but Stephon Gilmore, Kendall Fuller, Xavier Howard, those are all older guys pushing 30. In the case of Fuller, he's 29. Howard is 30. Gilmore's 34. Kenny Moore is a nickel. He's in that 28, 29 range. Tre'Davious White, not interested. I think those 2 injuries are going to really kill his market. He'll probably get a deal somewhere as soon as everyone figures out how healthy he is. He's going to have to prove that he's healthy. Darius Williams, as you mentioned, is a guy that's available still. Ahkello Witherspoon is interesting. Okudah, as I mentioned, already signed with the Texans. So I think there's Michael Davis is interesting. You mentioned Shaq Griffin. I'm a Michael Davis guy personally. J.C. Jackson is still out there. So quite a few names out on this market. It just depends on what you're looking for, honestly, as to how teams really approach the guys that are there and what they would be willing to spend. Let's get back to the comment section. VT Soldier 2010 writes, what's the holdup with the tackle market? We got to get us one. I think everybody's kind of trying to fill it out, right? Like I said with Devin White, Mekhi Becton is a hard, tough cookie to crack in terms of what the value is for a deal for him. It's hard to really figure out what should we pay a former top, half of the first round draft pick who can play both sides of the line, but hasn't proven that he's elite or even great at either side, hasn't been able to stay healthy. What do we pay a guy like that? The talent is clearly there, but what do we pay this dude, right? Tyron Smith is an older tackle. He's going to take his time. Unless a deal just jumps out of nowhere and wows him, because he's trying to win a Super Bowl. So he's not going to rush this process, right? And you look at some of the other guys, Jonah Williams, again, another guy, not great. Like, none of these dudes are dominant. Like, Robert Hunt got that deal from Carolina because he was excellent at guard. So you're going to pay that guy immediately. There are questions about every single one of these tackles. So I think it's going to force teams to figure out what is a good price. What am I really paying for here? Nobody wants to overpay, right? And that player is trying to get as much as he can in the deal. So it's going to take a while, I think, for that tackle market to really develop. But once you see it hit, I think you're going to see those tackles start going like hotcakes, right? But something's got to happen first, I believe. Dre Too Dope, right? Is it just me, or do I really want Blake Corum on our Commanders? Loved his production at UM. I wouldn't be opposed to Blake Corum, but again, I want a speed guy. To me, Blake Corum is a younger version of Austin Eckler with better running ability. But he's a guy that can catch it out of the backfield, but similar speed, like shorter back. He's not as rocked up as Austin Eckler, but I think he could do a lot of the same things. But I think he's a more pure runner in between the tackles, making guys miss in short spaces in phone booth, phone booth like agility and quickness, that sort of thing. But I want a guy that can, every time he touches it, you hold your breath because he could go the distance. We don't have that guy in the backfield right now, but we'll see what they do. I'm not tripping either way. I would love to get my hands on a guy like Blake Corum, because the only thing is he strikes me as a guy that could be an every down back. He strikes me as one of those dudes. So now you're putting our running back situation back to where it was last year, where you may not have enough touches for a guy like Brian Robinson Jr. And I've advocated for more opportunities for him. Because if you get Blake Corum, I think he's your best back at that point. But none of them can run very fast. So, again, that's kind of where I'm at with that. All right. See where we are now. Steel City. Who wins the quarterback battle? Either way, Russ does not move the needle for us. It's got to be Russ. I mean, again, the beauty of the situation is the money that he's being paid doesn't force you to make a decision you don't want to. If he's stinking it up throughout camp and in the preseason and you're not impressed, you don't have to play him. He's not making $30 million a year. So you don't feel obligated to put this man on the field. He's making $1.2 million. You can cut him if you get to camp and he stinks and he's causing a problem, which he's not going to do. Does he move the needle for you? We'll see. I think it was the best fit for you other than trading for Justin Fields, which is what I would have preferred you to have done. But you may not have wanted to give up what it was going to take to get Justin Fields. You still may be in that market. Maybe what ultimately happens is Russell Wilson provides you with, just like we saw with the Vegas Raiders, signing Gardner Minshew provides you with an insurance policy. Should things fall through, I got a guy I can start. But a one-year deal for Russell Wilson does not preclude you from drafting a quarterback. It does not preclude you from trading for Justin Fields. This market that we talked about, what the Steelers have done effectively by signing Russell Wilson is they've said, we don't need him. And now, if nobody else trades them, you can then pick up the phone and say, hey, so you still stuck with Justin over there. So how about I slide you this 5th round pick conditional fifth could turn into a fourth if this guy wins my job and starts X amount of games, right? You can now kind of hold all the cards with that situation if nobody else is interested. So I don't think Russell Wilson coming on board stops you from drafting a quarterback, stops you from trading for a Justin Fields, because it's a 1-year deal. What it does is it gives you insurance in case none of those other things happen. You're cool with saying, hey, I'll go to camp with Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett. I'll go to camp with that. So I wouldn't say it's the end all be all for the Steelers. Let's see. Wilfredo Elias. Let's get to your comment here in a second. Let me just make sure that nothing else has transpired. The Lions have agreed to terms with Marcus Davenport on a 1-year deal. I told you guys he would get a 1-year deal because last year did not go well. It was a disaster in Minnesota. So he's going to try to reprove himself on the market again and see if he can't hit it again following year and get a multi-year deal. So that was the appeal, the allure of a guy like Marcus Davenport. He's now heading to Detroit. Again, another good destination. I thought Minnesota was a good destination for him last year. Obviously, it didn't materialize, but another good destination, low risk, high reward proposition there in Marcus Davenport landing with the Detroit Lions. So good signing there. Let's see if anything else has happened. All right, nothing there. And let's check Schefter. And nothing there. Okay. Looks like we're up to date on everything that's happened. Wilfredo Elias writes, what's left at cornerback? Getting nervous about who's about to start opposite of Forbes in overall depth. Still a number of corners out there. And the corner market really hasn't been touched yet. Chidobe Awuzie, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Johnson, Sean Murphy Bunting, and Isaiah Oliver are really the only corners that have come off the board thus far. Everything else is still really intact. So Stephon Gilmore, Kendall Fuller, Xavier Howard, Kenny Moore, Tre'Davious White, Darius Williams, Steven Nelson. Again, a lot of these guys I don't want anyway, right? Adoree Jackson, Ronald Darby, Akilla Witherspoon is still out there. He makes a lot of sense for Washington. I've talked about him. Don't dismiss him. Kyshawn Nixon is still out there. He's interesting. I talked about him on the live stream last week. So those are just a few names. Christian Fulton is a guy I brought up last week. He's still available. Jordan Lewis is a guy that has been rumored to the Commanders. So I wouldn't be shocked. Michael Davis is the guy that I want in free agency. I want Michael Davis. He's still available. So J.C. Jackson is still out there. There's still a bunch of names. Like, you shouldn't be concerned about what's left at the cornerback market right now. Still plenty of options available. Keith Henry writes, yeah, Lou, it's a lot of good shit in Charlotte. It is. And I'm interested in going back to that store and picking up another item or two. And we'll see if Washington is interested in going back to the Charlotte store as well. Andy Man writes, who do you think is our best option to replace Gibby with? Eckler, Jones, a rookie, or would you prefer B-Rob be our every down back? So I would prefer Jones more than Eckler. Jones is going to cost you more than Eckler, though. And Jones has the speed that you're looking for, but it's still not the kind of speed I want. I'm being greedy, right? If I'm going to pay for a dude that can absolutely hit a home run every time he touches it. None of those dudes check that box. But Jones, to me, he offers the type of versatility, and he's played in a dual back system in Green Bay with A.J. Dillon, so he would fit perfectly here in Washington. Same thing with Austin Eckler. He would fit perfectly here as a change of pace, but I still think you can go young and cheap in the draft at running back if you're going to do that, So we'll see what happens. Got a super chat here from Twin D. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Twin D, Thank you for being a member of the MOBB writes, hey, LT, did we get Tyler Badass for a center, or is he sort of a jag? I like that he's not a rookie who's going to be playing with a rookie quarterback. He's better than a jag. He's not great by any stretch of the imagination. He's not Travis Frederick, the center that preceded him in Dallas, but he's solid. You know, you can do a hell of a lot worse than Tyler Biadasz. So he's an upgrade over what we've had. I don't think he was better than Chase Roullier, but he's on that same wavelength with a Chase Roullier, and he will solidify the position like Roullier did. I think you'll feel good about him. He's not great, but you'll feel good about him. You don't need your center to be all world. You'd like your center to be Jason Kelce, but how many of those are walking around in the NFL? Zero. The answer to that is zero. There's some good ones. Creed Humphrey in Kansas City. There's some good centers in the league. Don't get me wrong, but he'll fit in. He'll be an upgrade at the position. And a lot of people were really adamant that they didn't want a rookie center. Ricky Stromberg's not a rookie, but I get it. He didn't really play last year. He'd be a second-year guy, but similar to Sam, who only had one start coming in, he's essentially a rookie. I get it. I understand. You're not wrong for feeling that way. Let's see. I expect B-Rob to be our every down back. I do. No matter what they do, I expect him. I think they're going to be, I don't know if they really truly know what he's fully capable of. I assume that if they watch the film from last year, they're more impressed now with Brian Robinson Jr. now than they were before they got here. I think they watched the film like, oh shit, this guy's better than we thought, and he's more diverse than what we imagined when he was coming out of Alabama. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Todd Labor writes, do you think the Commanders will re-sign Curtis Samuel and Cam Curl? I wouldn't rule out anything. I don't see Curtis Samuel being back. I do see Cam Curl a way that he's back here in Washington. So I would not rule him out. I think it's more likely that Cam Curl returns than it is Curtis Samuel. But, you know, we'll see. I wouldn't rule anything out. I would not rule anything out. Andy Man. Okay, we got a trade. Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network is reporting that the Detroit Lions are acquiring cornerback Carlton Davis from the Bucs. So we don't know what the compensation is, but that's a hell of a move because he gives them a really good corner, a really good starting corner to upgrade their secondary. They're trying to go for it. That's what that says to me. They're going for it. They've never been shy. They've never been bashful. So that's a nice move. I like that. I want to see what the compensation is. My guess is a third-round pick. That's my guess. We'll see what the compensation is there. So that's a good pickup, though. That's a good pickup. Andy Man says, who do you see being our starting cornerbacks next season? One of them is going to be Emmanuel Forbes. Who's opposite of him? I can't tell you right now. We'll see what they do in free agency. We'll see what they do in the draft. That's a fluid situation. Game Bomber 1 TV2. Bucks are trading Carlton Davis to the Lions. Thank you for that update. Really appreciate you. Game Bomber 1 TV2. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. I think the Lions are going for it, as they should. I mean, they were dangerously close. Should have been in the Super Bowl this year. Blew that opportunity, and now they can smell a route back to the championship game. And remember, there's no guarantees that they're going to have this staff back together. I think their defensive coordinator is getting dangerously close to getting a job. Obviously, their offensive coordinator was in a position to get one this year and turn down the opportunity. So you don't know how this is going to go. You can't assume health and all of that good stuff. You got to go for it while you have a chance to do it. So the Philadelphia Eagles are signing linebacker Zach Bond to a 1-year deal. This is a typical Philadelphia Eagles signing at linebacker. They really devalue that position. They're not going to throw real money at it. So their answer at linebacker is usually, like we saw last year, go out and get a Nicholas Morrow, go out and get a Zach Cunningham, and that should be suffice. With the guys that we've got up front in the back end, we should be fine. Just throw out a couple of linebackers and be done with it. So that's not a needle moving move, but every move isn't going to be a needle moving move, right? I tell you guys that all the time. So Zach Bond, now a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's see. All right. Todd Labor writes, do you want the Commanders to bring back Kendall Fuller? And is St. Juice a free agent or is he under contract? St. Juice is under contract. He's got one more year left on his rookie deal. And I would love it if they brought Kendall Fuller back, but I don't think that's going to happen. But again, we'll see. Obviously, there's a market at the cornerback position that really hasn't been tapped into yet. So we'll see how everything goes. That's why I said don't count out Cam Curl. Don't count out Kendall Fuller. We'll see what those markets develop as. And if the money comes down, maybe those guys end up coming back to Washington. You just don't know. Let's see. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Twin D, double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, LT, I'll say it again. If your wife likes someone being offed early in the show with a good mix of sex, violence, and great villains, then Banshee is the way to go. Only 4 seasons that move quickly. I'm going to tap into it and see what it's about. I'm going to tap into it, check the preview, have her check it out, see if it's something that we're interested in, and then we'll go from there. So what app is that on, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, I can figure it out. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just being lazy so that we can know where exactly to go. Let's see. I think we were right here. I think I missed a comment. Where was I? All right, I was right up in here. All right, here we go. Scratch More Fortune writes, I can't believe we actually signed a linebacker. I know, right? I can believe it. It's a different group in charge, and this group puts more emphasis on linebacker. I told you that already, right? You see the comeback in the league amongst the linebacker position. Teams value, and that's all a philosophical belief. The Eagles don't believe in investing in the linebacker position, right? So they're one of those teams that don't care about the linebacker position. But Adam Peters is coming from somewhere where the linebacker position was important, and you saw the benefits that it reaped them. Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. coming from Dallas, where the linebacker position was important, and you saw the benefits that it did reap them there. So you had to know that the linebacker position was going to be upgraded. But it still feels crazy, being that we've run from upgrading the position for so long, it feels like, right? All right. One last check of the comments, or one last check of social media before we get out of here. I'll be back later on tonight, breaking down all the moves that the Commanders have made. If they make any other moves, we'll have even more to talk about. If they don't make any other moves, you feel good about the 3 moves that have been made already today, and expect them to be aggressive again tomorrow. If they're done for the day, expect them to be aggressive into the end of the week. Honestly speaking, I think you're going to see them be very aggressive with these free agents, because again, they got a lot of work to do in tying up the loose ends of this roster. Chargers are re-signing safety Aloe Gilman to a 1-year deal. Looks like, well, I can't say it's a 1-year deal. They're bringing back Aloe Gilman, it looks like. So that's one safety off the market, it looks like. So keep that one in your back pocket. So I got the information on the trade. So the Lions receive Carlton Davis, a 2024 6th-round pick, and a 2025 6th-rounder as well. The Bucks receive Lions 2024 3rd-round pick. What did I say? A 3rd-round pick right now. I didn't expect the other 2 picks to be thrown in, but I thought that the compensation would be somewhere in that 3rd-round range. Sounds about right for a quality starting NFL corner in this league. Makes a ton of sense for both parties involved. Bucks were looking to get out of Carlton Davis's contract, move on from a guy that they probably didn't plan on re-signing, and also get some capital in the draft this year to help probably replace him, probably spin that pick into a corner, package up picks to move up and get a guy that they really like. So they're going to use that as ammunition to hit the reset button, probably at that very cornerback position. So I think that is it. We got all the information from that trade. And I don't think we have any new signings. So I am going to exit stage left while there's an opportunity in the action to do so. This felt real March Madness-ish like. This was fun, seeing all of these deals happen the way that they did in the manner that they have thus far, kind of the news just trickling in, boom, 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 boom. I love it. Want more of it. If you're a Commanders fan, I'll be back at it again tonight. We'll be talking about all the moves the Commanders have made live and reacting to that. Really excited about the moves that have been made thus far. And there's so much more work still left to be done. And I wouldn't be shocked if they sign another guy before we get on the live platform later on tonight. Meanwhile, for the rest of you, I'll probably be back tomorrow because I expect action to be hot and heavy again tomorrow. Tampering period will still be in full effect. I expect teams to continue to be working throughout the wee hours of the night, trying to get these deals hammered out and continuing to see a lot more of these deals get done. And you'll start to see some of these markets, breakthrough. Tackle market really has been untouched largely to this point. Cornerback market, we've seen a trade here. We still haven't really seen, any big name corners really get signed yet. So the safety market is still largely untouched, right? Linebacker market just starting to get into a little bit of motion with that Frankie Louvu signing. We'll see if that has a ripple effect there, but there's still some markets that still have been largely untouched. The tackle market, as I mentioned. So I look forward to seeing some of that stuff develop, and then we'll come back and talk about it tomorrow on the podcast again. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Louie T Network podcast. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys later on this evening. If not, I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless. Good night. Louie T.